interrupt this program to bring you...
All right, everybody. My name is Kevin.
And I'm John.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Adam.
And we are The Real Movie Guys. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Real Review, the series where we review and discuss all your favorite movies. Ladies and gentlemen, it's May, so you know what that means. Real anime. Real Anime is a special event where we review all your favorite anime films. On today's episode, we're taking a look at a special film from Studio Ghibli, The Tale of Princess Kaguya. Found inside a shitting stalk of bamboo by an old bamboo cutter and his wife, a tiny girl grows rapidly into an exquisite young lady. The mysterious young princess enthralls all who encounter her, but ultimately she must confront her fate, the punishment for her crime. Okay, guys, so this is it is actually the first film I think we're talking about that does not involve Hayao Miyazaki, from what we've talked about so far up until this point. There's been quite a few movies he hasn't been involved with Studio Ghibli, but at this current point in time when we're talking about this film in particular, he was retired. I know he's not anymore, he's back, and he'll probably keep coming back a million more times, but at this point he was gone, so the studio had to do something new. And, The Tale of Princess Kaguya, I've heard of the film before. It was actually nominated for Best Animated Picture back in 2013 when it was released. I gotta say, I think this movie is pretty good. I really do enjoy the animation style. It's something different from Studio Ghibli, especially after, the friggin' Tale of Ariete. I don't want to talk about that anymore. After that disaster and a half, this is nice to see. It was a risk, for sure. Did it pay off? I have some issues with it, but overall, Tale of Princess Kaguya, I think it was a fine movie. Adam, how about you? What did you think of this one?
I think the thing that really stood out for me for this movie was the art style. I think it's worth it to watch this alone for the art because it was just beautiful the entire time. Movie-wise, it was okay. I think I'm on the same page as you. It was all right. It was worth the watch, I think.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't know what to expect, I guess, when I was going into this, because it doesn't look like any other Studio Ghibli movie we've talked about or, anything I've seen at this point. It kind of really stands out from the catalog, if I'm being honest, except another movie we'll talk about. But this one in particular, I think it really does stand out on its own. And the art style, I think, is fantastic, which maybe that might be most of what it has going for it, I think, for the most part. But we'll talk more about that. John, welcome back to the show. Are you enjoying your...
Well, thank you for having me.
I know, are you enjoying your journey through anime here?
Oh, my journey through Ghibli's been amazing.
All right, so what do you think? Miyazaki's gone. We got The Tale of Princess Kaguya. I'm sure this one was right up your alley of all people to have been watching this. Talk to me. What do you think?
Oh, right up my alley. This movie, I can say it's very interesting. And I have to disagree with your art style. I don't like this art style.
Really?
It wasn't one of my faves.
Okay. All right.
After watching all the other Ghibli movies, this one, a little put off by this art style.
Really? Oh, I cannot wait to talk about it. I hope you're ready to talk about that, because we're going to have a little bit of a discussion. But we'll come back to you. We're going to come back to you. Julie, real quick, what did you think of this one?
Gonna have to disagree with John and agree with you and Adam. I really loved the art style and the animation. It was so beautiful to watch and to see how they were able to capture movement, among other things. I did enjoy the story. There were some, moments where I was like, this is really like, there was high moments, and then there were some moments that really kind of hit you as like, this is sad and depressing. And but with that being said, a little on the long side for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that, and I think that was one of the biggest deficits that this movie had going for it was the actual length. But before we get into that, let's talk about who this is for. So first off, if you've seen any Studio Ghibli film up until this point, I think this one's going to separate a lot of people. I don't know if you guys would agree with that. If you're not into the feudal Japan style storytelling, where we're talking about, things, it's an older story, right? It's an older Japanese fairy tale. So it's definitely going to have a more, laser focused audience, if you will. You have to be interested in that even to enjoy, I think, this movie to some degree. It's fairy tale stuff I do enjoy, but I think, again, it's going to separate a lot of people. Adam, what did you think of the story overall for this one? Again, talking like Julie kind of said, it does seem like it's kind of long, because it seems like it's a short story, which I believe it is based on a short story.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that it's like based off of the oldest or one of the oldest like folklores in Japanese history.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty like, I guess it follows the storyline almost too close, I guess, to the point where it becomes so drawn out.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it made good changes for the most part, but a lot of it, I don't know, it just didn't seem to work together. Some bits, at least for me. But yeah, I think it was a little bit too long.
Yeah, again, I think you're going to lose a lot of your audience in this movie. And I always like to say, when I look at a movie, any movie for that matter, animated, live action, doesn't really matter. I always look at, like, from an editing standpoint, what you can take out of a movie, right? Because if you can take a scene out and it doesn't affect the plot and it makes the movie go a little bit faster, I think it should be removed. And there's quite a few instances in this movie where I think that is the case. You could take out whole sections of this movie, changes absolutely nothing. And it still suffers, I think, from a lot of the other fortunate Studio Ghibli issues where they have this like really great rising action and they have a great premise. Then when they get to the end, I feel like they need to rush the movie and just end it. And then that's the end of the story. I don't know if that's just a Studio Ghibli trend that we've seen. Ironically, again, Hayao Miyazaki is not involved in this movie. But you would think he would be based on some of the way that the plot was moving. John, I'm interested to see what you thought about the plot. Did you feel alienated from this one? What were some of your thoughts?
I would say, yeah, I felt alienated, but I'm used to that by now. But I thought it was definitely too long of a movie, and I really didn't quite care for the story. It was one of those stories where I couldn't be drawn into.
Okay, so yeah, it just wasn't grabbing you, which I could understand with that, and I think there can be some degree of that happening if if the movie doesn't grab you right away, because it does take a while to get going. Julie, I know you even said too, like it seems like it took a little bit to find its footing in this movie when we were watching it.
Well, I feel almost the opposite. Like I was right away, I was into it.
Mm-hmm.
But then once we go into like the city, once the father, the bamboo cutter, I guess saved all the gold and built the mansion, that kept me going a little bit. But then I felt like I did feel a significant kind of sag in the middle, where you're seeing the princess kind of go through like actually becoming a princess and the trials that were go along with that. Again, it was kind of like highs and lows in that middle part for me, because there'd be like a lull where I'm like, all right, I'm kind of losing interest. And then I like the whole bit with the suitors, the like 5 or 6 like highest ranking, officials coming to propose to her. But then they go away for a while after she sends them on these like ridiculous missions after all the things they promised. But then they do come back, with the gifts. So I like that whole little bit. But there was just some moments like, trying to think like the whole scene with the party when the father hosts the name ceremony party and it's going on for days and days, like that I was losing interest. And then a couple like really just weird dream sequences where you don't realize like that it's a dream at first. It seems like it's actually happening because this movie does have fantastical elements, and then you realize that it didn't actually happen and nothing really was gained from it. At that same party, I guess she gets so fed up listening to all the men talk about her that they want to see her. And she darts off in a beautiful scene of her just running through the wilderness. But then like nothing amounts to it other than her realizing that the village she grew up in just kind of picked up and left. But then we don't know, like, did that actually happen? Because then she wakes up in exactly the same spot she was in before. So it's stuff like that like kind of irked me and kind of just, I don't know, slowed the movie down for me.
Right. And what do you think about Adam? Do you think Julie's right on that point where do you think there needed to be more degree of separation as far as the realistic element and the fantasy elements? Because I did find that kind of confusing at times too in this movie.
Yeah, because it's like, where are we going with this? It never could find like which path it wanted to go down. I feel, and that's probably where a lot of people are going to disconnect from it, because if you're not paying attention, or if you're not understanding the lore, I guess, then it's going to lose you.
Right, and I think the movie opens with such a fantasy style element, right? She's a little girl, she's born out of a flower, and it's pretty bizarre. I'll be honest with you. If you're not used to seeing something like that happen, it's pretty bizarre. And this is a more mature, or I don't want to say, I almost said Miyazaki, a more mature Studio Ghibli film, where they're not afraid to show a little bit of nudity, which I was kind of surprised about. They were definitely more fancy free in that. But again, in Japan, I think that is more socially acceptable in their film. It's their ratings aren't as much as us, but I was surprised to see that. But not even just the story in general. I do appreciate the one thing that I did take away from this movie, which was surprising, where compared to your common like Disney animated film, usually you have a girl wanting to be a princess and wanting to be this big, be in this big glamorous life. I do appreciate how they made Kaguya, or the princess, they made her not want that at all. She was kind of the polar opposite, which we haven't really seen in many Disney movies. John, I think you would agree, maybe Frozen was one of the first time we started to see like the almost anti-princess at times in those movies. Is that something you noticed in this movie too?
Yeah, no, definitely. It was an interesting take on how to do princesses and stuff.
Yeah, again, it's different. We're so used to that socially, like, oh, I have to be a princess, be beautiful and wonderful, have a lavish life, but to have the opposite of that, I definitely did appreciate that take. But yeah, the plot is a bit of a problem, I think. Don't you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that whole princess element, like just how much it showed, like what a burden it really is, especially at that point of time in Japan. Like the response, like she has no freedom, compared to her life in the village, where she could just run and play and have fun and, have ownership of what she does. But here she's literally just supposed to be a token of beauty and say yes to, the best suitor, and just how much that weighs on her.
Yeah, no, I think for sure. And then again, I want to just touch on it. The fantasy elements really come into play, I think, at the end of this movie is really when they ramp up suddenly. And I don't know about you guys. Again, I told you I felt it was rushed at the end. Did everyone else kind of feel that way? We literally just jumped into this headlong scene of them flying around everywhere and her turning into a god and like whisking off. And it's kind of bizarre, and just kind of like, it really does feel out of left field when you watch the movie as a whole from beginning to end. Did anyone else kind of feel a little bit lost at the end of the movie, where it just kind of ends and it just, I guess, she ascended back into the moon? And I know, I understand there's like religious notation and lore and stuff like that, but still, for someone who wasn't really familiar with the material, I did feel a little bit lost at the end of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we were saying again. It's like, what are we trying to go for here? Are we staying with some sort of, realistic yet kind of going towards more modern beliefs, or are we going into a fantasy element there?
Right.
I agree. It did lose me too, though.
Yeah, and I wanted to like it, and I think I do appreciate it to some extent. But again, I don't know. It really kind of lost me at the end. But what did keep me throughout this whole entire movie, and John apparently disagrees, is the art style. I thought this movie was pretty breathtaking. Again, very different from classic Studio Ghibli. We didn't see any of the same character types. We didn't see any of the same character models. Everything in this movie is brand new, beautiful, like almost like watercolor painted, and just like very limited, but also very fluid motion at the same time. Like, this movie really nailed it. And I know at the time when this was made in 2013, it was the highest grossing Japanese animated film made to date. And you could tell the money was put into this movie for the animation, because I think it really stands out. The color palette is very uniform, but also very bright, and when it needs to be, and also very laid back and pulled back and conservative. I like this. I really, really like this. And again, a lot of the shadowing is there. I think especially with Kaguya, where we have her scenes, some of her scenes when the suitors are going to talk to her, kind of like Julie said, she's kind of like masked by the like that big what is that, like a mesh kind of like curtain, and
curtain almost.
Yeah, and the way the light just kind of like seeps through and you see a little bit of her peeking out, it's really breathtaking. And not even that, like I said, the more fantastical elements I think are really brought to light in this movie. John, we'll start with you since you're the negative one here. What were some of what you said you were off put by this? You didn't like it. What's going on? What did you think?
I didn't like any of it, actually.
Okay.
I wasn't drawn into the art. It didn't stick out to me as much as the rest of them have. The art style was different, but I felt off-putting by this. And I didn't feel like, as amazing as Miyazaki's done with his art style and his colors, I felt like this one more lacked that.
Really? So you felt it lost some of the magic that Miyazaki's had in his films? Is that what you're trying to?
Yeah, yeah. I felt like Miyazaki, when he was doing the artwork, it was done very well and very beautifully. This seems to lack it for me.
I mean,
That's just me.
No, I can understand it to some point, I guess, because this does seem more like a classic Japanese like scroll, right? It's like and I think that's what I maybe appreciated more was that style of art. Adam, what did you think of the art style? Did you think, to me again, I know I kind of understand what John's saying, but what did you think?
See, I agree with you. I do like that scroll type of look to it with the watercolors, but I can see what he's saying too. It feels. There were certain times where I was like, is this like a rough first draft? Just by some of the scenes, there were just so many lines on there. I was like, they could have cleaned that up a little bit to make it look more, I guess, more like a watercolor scene.
Right. I guess maybe it was a little too minimalist at times. Is that what you would say? Like they need a little more detail, a little more refinement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think even some of the CGI scenes I think stand out too. I did notice just a few times some of the more like 3D element kind of scenes they were trying to show. You could definitely tell like it needed like another minute or two just to cook to get it down. But I don't know. I think overall it really stood out to me. But again, maybe the length of this movie had something to do with it. Would you think that had something to do with it maybe, Julie? Because some of it kind of looks like it's just you're looking at a watercolor painting for a long time because nothing's happening. So I wonder if that could maybe off-put some of the animation.
Yeah, I mean, that honestly didn't bother me. I didn't really pick out a lot of like the flaws or imperfections. I actually liked the simplicity of the art style, especially in comparison to, what Disney and Pixar is putting out, which is, phenomenal. And we're always impressed at the amount of detail and the realism they're able to add in these, computer animations and, CGI. But I think like just that simple, hand-drawn watercolor style, I thought was really beautiful. And then at the end of the day, it's making, it's a combination of like visual storytelling where you're not doing these like, elaborate illustrations and you're letting that work in conjunction with your story.
Yeah, I think one of my things I would have to say is I think the culture speaks louder for this movie than maybe any other Miyazaki movie, where we've said before, like when we're watching a Miyazaki Ghibli film, it didn't always feel like it was a Japanese production. Like sure, they had anime character models to an extent, but it didn't feel uniquely Japanese. And I think this movie really captured the culture of like feudal Japan excellently, and I think that art style really lends to it. But again, I can understand what John's saying. When you've seen all the other works, this is quite a detour from anything Studio Ghibli's done, and we're going to see another detour coming up too. But I think this one pays off. I think this one really does have some kind of special soul to it. Would I do it all the time? No, it's not something I would recycle over and over again like some of the major studios like Disney and even Ghibli to themselves have done in the past. But this, I think, was just like it was a risk, right? And I think it does pay off for what this movie is. And I think it deserves its flowers to an extent for that. I think it did a really good job. Another thing I do want to comment on is I watched this as the dub, and I believe we all watched the dub version of this as well. How are we feeling about the dub cast for this movie? I'm curious to see. Or do you think maybe the Japanese cast would have been better? Because I did enjoy the dub casting in this movie. I thought, considering this was like one of the first films, or maybe not the first, but it's in that first era of kind of I think this is Shout Factory, I want to say, or is it G Kids? I believe it's G Kids is taking over the dubbing of these films. So we're starting to see some of the, not so much the A-list celebrities, but we're starting to see some more normal voice actors come into the throes of these movies. I think they did a really good job, though. I really thought all the voice actors did a phenomenal job, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I liked all of them. I mean, there's definitely some big names that stand out. Is this like my favorite voice cast out of all the Studio Ghibli movies? No, but I think they all delivered performances that were, well done and appropriate to their characters. Like, I don't think anybody was miscast.
How about you, Adam? What did you think of the voice acting? Do you think this would have been serviced better in Japanese, or do you think the dub was sufficient for this one?
I think for American audiences, yeah, I think the dub was okay. I probably would go back just to see the sub, just out of curiosity for my own sake. But yeah, no, I mean, I think for the American viewing, yeah, I think it was fine.
Yeah, I think so too. I would agree with that. Maybe the Japanese would add more of a cultural perspective to it. Maybe that would make it more suitable. But yeah, I think they did a good job. I mean, James Caan being in a movie is just hilarious to me as the bamboo cutter.
Yes.
Elf's dad is just phenomenal. I mean, we can't deny that, right?
Reunited with Elf's stepmom, Mary Steenburgen.
Yeah.
As the bamboo wife.
And as we would know, Clara from Back to the Future Part 3. I'm just saying, have my heart forever, Doc Brown's wife. What did you think, John? Did you like the dub cast for this, or were you not blown away by their performances?
No, I thought they served their time well. I thought they did very good with their characters.
Yeah,
I wasn't blown away, but I thought they did a really good job.
Yeah, I always am impressed though with Chloe Grace Moretz. I really do. Every time I see her pop up every now and then, I usually am, impressed with her performance. I think she does a seriously good job. I think she's a great actress, and she proves herself as a voice actress. She does take time to do different roles, which I do appreciate. Which again, she kind of brought Kaguya to life more than I think the script even did. I actually think her vocal performance was very well done as far as this movie. But yeah, it's a curious thing. The Tale of Princess Kaguya, it's not going to be for everyone. I think everyone who watches this movie, if you're looking for, again, the typical Studio Ghibli movie, I don't think it's there. I think this is something special. The only thing, I don't have many negatives really about this movie, except for the fact I just feel like it's way too long, and it does hurt at times. Kind of like I said, there's long stretches of this movie I think that could have been taken out, and just the plot wouldn't have been effective. One take I'll just say, and I'm curious what you guys think. Do you think this maybe would have worked better as a short story, like a short film, versus maybe a long form format? Because in my opinion, I think that would have worked better, because that seems like the fairy tale that they're trying to convey here was a short story. And I think in a short form, I think that would have been significantly more interesting. Does anyone else kind of feel that way too?
Absolutely. Because they played with some weird stuff with time in this movie that just only continue to extend the length of the movie and add, just some unnecessary stuff. Like when she meets with the suitors, she says, "Oh, go get me all this stuff you promised." And then there's like a pretty significant gap. And then all of a sudden, all the suitors are coming back and bringing the stuff. I feel like not maybe immediately after, but that time could have been condensed big time, to benefit the pace of the movie.
What do you think, Adam? Same kind of thoughts there too, or?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do agree. I think that especially with the art style that they chose, I think it would be more attractive, I guess, in more of a shorter burst than what we got for the, 2+ hour movie that we watched.
Yeah, this is
I think so. I think it would be better.
Yeah, this is on record as being Studio Ghibli's longest film to date. And it feels like it at times. I really hate to say that, and it's not that it's necessarily terrible. It's just like, I mean, I know Julie's usually the one nodding off in our movie watching, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I started to lose a little bit of time here and there. And again, it's not that the movie's bad. It's just when nothing's happening, if you're not investing in me, I lose kind of interest. And when you have such an interesting art style, I really do want to see you utilize it more. And that was actually the other comment I had too, is like, even though this is a beautiful movie, I don't know if they took full advantage of the art style. Like there are some really great scenes where there's like Julie said, when she's running away in her nightmares, and the dream sequences are fantastic. I think I would have wanted a little more of that. Just a little more, just like some more breathtaking scenes, some more imagery, and, some imagination to some of it. Because a lot of it just kind of feels like normal, static, scenic images. And, when you have an art style like this, you probably should take advantage of it. But with that being said, I think we're ready to give our final scores. I'm going to give The Tale of Princess Kaguya a 7.8 out of 10. fine movie. You know, I enjoyed my time with it overall. I don't think there's anything really terrible with it. If you're looking for the typical Studio Ghibli film, that's not what this is. This is more experimental, and I applaud that. I think that needs to be done, and a studio should try to invest in different types of animation and see what they can do to break the mold. I think there's nothing wrong with that. The story is interesting, even if it is a little confusing, and it's definitely going to lose viewers at times. But if you put the time into it, I think you can understand plenty what's going on. The animation's beautiful, and I think Tale of Princess Kaguya has received some acclaim. It was actually nominated again for Best Animated Picture. It deserves that. I think it definitely deserves a place. Is it the best Ghibli movie? Not even close. But again, since Miyazaki's gone, this is one of the few films where I can say like this was an interesting attempt at something new, breaking his legacy from Studio Ghibli. So kudos to that, I have to say. Adam, how about you? Where do you stand on this one?
All right, I'm going to give The Tale of Princess Kaguya a 7.6, I think.
Have mercy on me. Hello. May I ask, please? Who might you be, my lady?
It's good. It was definitely worth a watch. I am not upset that we watched this one. But I think overall it was a decent watch, especially for the art alone.
Yeah, I think, again, it does hold its place, again, among the Ghibli catalog. It's just something, a curiosity, if you will, to check out, but, not to take anything away from it. And I think it is a decent movie. I'd say I had a good time overall. All right, John, how about you? What do you think on this one?
I give this movie a good old 6.
Even a noble princess must sweat and sometimes want to laugh out loud. Surely they want to cry or get mad and want to scream.
Oh no, a noble princess should never show
Then
her...
a noble princess is not human.
Too long. Not my type of movie. Straight up 6. Not gonna watch it again.
All right, well, fair enough. John's spoken his word there.
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for everyone. I kind of said, and even when we talked about it, it wasn't for everyone. And even I give John credit for his points there. I think there is something to be desired sometimes with the animation style, even though I do think it is breathtaking and beautiful. And I think the length just really kills it. If you did have some curiosity and enjoyment in this movie, the length is really going to hurt. You're going to feel every minute of this movie at times, unfortunately. Julie, how about you? What do you think on this one?
I'm going to come in right in between you and Adam. I'm going to be giving The Tale of Princess Kaguya a 7.7 out of 10.
I've been found.
So what? Even if you have been found, so what? I don't care about that. I want to run away with you. Please.
Stimaru.
I've been really toying around with my scoring, and like a 7.5 seemed a little too low. I was going to do 7.8, but it sucks being the last one to give your score. So I'm going to be different, and I'm going to do a 7.7. There was a lot of intrigue in this movie. Would have liked maybe some more lore building, but scaling back on the time. And the art style was really beautiful. So that is like the biggest selling point for this movie for me. It's just the style.
Yeah.
So maybe style over substance a little bit.
Yeah, I think style over substance for sure. Again, I wish maybe we got a little bit more out of this movie as far as what they could have done even with the art style. But what they did do, they did manage to achieve something special here. I think it will resonate just slightly more with the Japanese audiences and those maybe in the know about the original fairy tale of Princess Kaguya, those with the child in the bamboo shoot. If you have experience with that story, I think it will relate to you more. But again, I got to applaud something different because what's coming up next is going to be a hell of a discussion. So I just want to thank you all guys so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. That's Adam, John, Julie. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. We'll catch you next time. If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.